only thing that could have been a stranger sight at St. Vincent College yesterday than your favorite football team conducting an actual walkthrough with actual plays on a basketball court would be Darnell Washington at left tackle. Good morning to you. See, I got your attention like that. I'm cheating a little bit, but it worked. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and/or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. No, the big day didn't happen at training camp. I was on the sideline waiting for it. 1:55 p.m. as promised, and the team was out there. All the pads were on. Aaron Rodgers had just thrown a touchdown pass in a really, really light drill to DK Metcalf, and you could hear one thunderclap off in the distance. You could see the players all start to migrate back up the hill, and then over the loudspeaker came, "Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please," or something to that effect. And we were all whisked out of there. And there went practice. There went the first hitting. There went the backs on backers. They would go, the Steelers would, into the aforementioned gymnasium and run through some stuff. But basically, it's a day that's lost. And it's a day in pads that's lost, which only has me looking forward that much more to when it occurs, which hopefully will be today. And when it does, eager as I am to see the defensive line, especially Derek Harmon, rise up, the same thing's probably going to happen today that did yesterday, which is I get on the field, I see them out there, and wait, that really was Big Darnell at left tackle. Okay, so it was an odd alignment. It was one of those where you move both of your tackles, your actual tackles, to the right side. So Darnell comes a little bit closer to the left guard. It looks like he's a left tackle. He really isn't. But for a moment, I thought about, just like I get the sense, seeing, hearing, and reading what it is that you've got to offer, that you seem to be thinking about what's a way to avoid having Broderick Jones mess all of this up. If I'm wrong about attaching that sentiment to you, let me know, but I really don't think I am. Most of the feedback that I've gotten, especially over the past, I guess, 72 hours or so, has been something good, something really good, ... Broderick. To which I have a couple of things to say this morning. One, nothing that Broderick has done in this camp to this stage means a solitary thing. Yes, I've seen, and yes, I've reported that he's gotten beaten a couple of times in drills. One of those, which went viral because somebody shot the video from the crowd and put it out on social media, looked really, really bad. But on none of those drills, none, meaning none of them that were executed, never mind whether they were reported or recorded, on none of them were pads and or physicality involved, and attempting to judge line play, either line, offensive or defensive, without pads, without the players being allowed to hit each other is insane. It's clinically, from the football perspective, insane. Rod has done a lot this offseason to get himself into, I don't want to say better shape, but in different shape. He's lighter. He hopes to be faster. He hopes to be able to adjust more on the fly, including when somebody does get that first move on him. So another thing that I have to say on this, because that practice was scrapped yesterday, he won't miss a session in pads. Know why? Mike Tomlin would say after the little gymnasium thing that Broderick is expected to participate today. He declared this in advance, which very much fits with the pattern for those of you who've been paying close attention to Broderick, and I get the sense that a lot of you have done that as well, that Tomlin doesn't seem to have much patience for when Broderick either says or actually is hurt. That was the case last year in training camp when Broderick would come over to the end zone and tell us about the various things that are ailing him. Not in a whiny way, and I'm not suggesting he's being dishonest. He just shared stuff that most of the athletes won't share. And then in turn, we'd go and ask Tomlin about it, and Tomlin would be like, has he missed any reps? No. Okay, next question. So it's possible that has already restarted from the head coaching perspective. You wrapped your hamstring, you got your day, you're going to be out there. As in tomorrow, you're going to be out there tomorrow. And all of this is my way of saying if you think you're putting pressure on Broderick, or other people in my line of work are putting pressure on Broderick, it does not approach what he's going to be getting from the inside. And that's true of all of these guys. Even Zach Frazier, who elevated himself to arguably a top 10, maybe even a top 5 ranking league-wide at his position as a rookie, he's got to do it in year 2. He's the first one to tell you that. Right now, with Isaac Seumalo out, Spencer Anderson's got to show himself. He's got to show himself regardless because he's the backup at both guard positions, and you'd better believe he's going to see action in 2025. Troy Fautanu had 55 magnificent snaps in Denver. 1 game last season, week 2. But that was it. That was it. He was done after that. He has so much to prove. He and I had a pretty good talk the other day, and that's how he feels. He feels like he's shown nothing, that he hasn't had a chance yet, that he's feeling it too, okay? And even though Mason McCormick was able to play through his rookie season because James Daniels went down early, and even though he only gave up 2 sacks the entire season, both of those sacks were in the playoff game. This was what McCormick had to say yesterday on the subject of the line in general.
We got very high expectations. We're not as young as we were last year. We're still young, but it's time for us to take a jump for sure.
When we come back, J1Q. This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar. Today's J1Q comes from Lou, who says, DK, are you surprised with the $17.5 million laying there in cap space that the Steelers haven't added the best available wide receiver and the best available backup offensive tackle? This is one thing that's been frustrating for me about Omar Khan, is that he will make huge moves, but then with money still available, he'll leave a hole or two like last year's wide receiver mess, and it bit him in the rear end. Didn't he learn? Lou, I have much to say here. First off, and please take this in the appropriate spirit, Omar's job description, as complicated and convoluted as it can be, does not involve keeping anyone, yourself included, from getting frustrated, nor should that be used in any way to grade how it is that he performs. Everyone in his own building was frustrated with Omar as they were watching Caleb Johnson fall down the draft, pick after pick after pick, and then into the 3rd round, and they're going, Omar, come on, man, just move up and get him. We could really use this guy. We love him. Omar read the room, not that room, but the one that counts, which was the draft board. He thought nobody was going to take a running back in the interim. He sat there and waited and watched and waited some more. And then, what do you know? He didn't have to give up an asset to get Johnson. Does it matter how frustrated he made everybody? Nope. Now, did Omar deserve the criticism that he got, including a lot of it from me, for the way he handled the WR2 thing last year? Yes. Yes. And doubly so when Mike Williams finally made it here that he wouldn't even really get utilized much, which represents some kind of disconnect between Omar and the rest of the staff, or awareness of who the player was, what shortcomings he might have. Just not a good look. That whole thing, you described it as a WR2 mess, and I would agree with that. But you want your WR2, and you want him now so that you don't have to think about it anymore, Lou. I'm seeing right through you here, okay? Isn't it funny, incidentally, how all of a sudden everyone wants an offensive tackle in addition to the wide receiver? My belief on those fronts, first off with wide receiver, remains that he's going to be in pursuit of one, and that the majority of that remaining cap space will go to that position. I've been saying this for several weeks now. There's no cause whatsoever for me to be thinking about that differently now. In parentheses here, I'm going to remind everybody that $17.5 million in cap space doesn't mean that he's got $17.5 that he can spread out to players. He, like Kevin Colbert before him, prefers to hold on to about $5 million in the figurative pocket in case it's needed over the course of a long season. So it's really around 12. And as for the offensive tackle, I've also been saying this for weeks. They're not there, not impact guys, not starter guys. There is a reason that Dan Moore is about to collect $82 million in Nashville. The cost of doing business at that position is colossal anymore. So the teams that have tackles tend to keep them. The teams that have depth at tackle, well, there aren't many. But I'll bet that once you get through the preseason, that's going to be a priority for the Steelers to try to find somebody else who can help there. If Dylan Cook were to not show well, or if Calvin Anderson were to look a little too old for regular duty. I appreciate the passion and the question, Lou. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. We will have a double shot of Steelers today from Latrobe at 5 p.m. Eastern. Chris Halleck and I reporting from the scene, again, hopefully, of a really eventful practice. Hope you can join us.